The day Rose broke into my house was the day I realized I had to sever ties with my past. It was a culmination of years of frustration, sacrifice, and emotional turmoil. I had built my life from the ground up, and I wasn't about to let anyone, not even family, dismantle it. When I confronted Rose, I demanded to know if she had been in her right mind when she decided to trespass into my home. Standing there with Joel, she seemed to believe it was acceptable to take what wasn't hers. I pointed out that her current predicament was a direct result of her own choices, choosing to get pregnant without financial stability, staying with an unambitious partner, and attempting to claim my house instead of finding her own solution. Hers, sobbing, quieted, replaced by stunned silence. But I wasn't finished. Years of pent-up frustration came pouring out. She needed to hear the harsh truths that everyone else had sheltered her from. I told her life isn't a fairy tale where others fix your mistakes. I questioned how she planned to care for a child when she couldn't care for herself. Did she expect Mom to solve all her problems, or was she still deluded enough to think I'd rescue her despite everything? I suggested she needed to start taking responsibility for her own life and stop expecting others to bail her out every time things got tough. I told her she needed to grow up and face reality instead of living in a fantasy world where everything works out without effort or sacrifice. She finally spoke, her voice weak and trembling, accusing me of being stone cold and not understanding how hard her life was or the pressure she was under. She claimed I couldn't possibly understand what she was going through because I didn't have children and had never been in her position. She said I was being heartless in her moment of need, and that she had hoped I would show some compassion despite our differences. I laughed. I told her I knew exactly how hard life could be because I'd lived it. I reminded her how I'd been kicked out at 16 with no safety net and no one to call for help. I had been younger than she was now and completely alone, yet I had survived and thrived. The difference between us was that I'd taken responsibility and made something of myself while she blamed everyone else for her mistakes. I had faced my challenges head-on instead of expecting others to fix them for me. The line went quiet again. I didn't wait for a response. I told her it was time to grow up and hung up. I felt no guilt or doubt. Rose had made her choices and now had to face the consequences. It wasn't my job to fix her life. She needed to learn to stand on her own 2 feet, just as I had been forced to do years ago. Maybe this would be the wake-up call she needed to finally start taking responsibility for herself and her child. Update 6. The Unexpected Visitor. Last night, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. I wasn't expecting anyone, and after everything that had happened, I was wary of surprise visitors. Looking through the peephole, I saw Mom standing there looking disheveled. Her hair was a mess, her clothes were wrinkled, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. I crossed my arms and waited. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. Before she could speak, I stopped. Her. I told her if she was here to lecture me about Rose or beg me to fix her mess, she should save her breath. I wasn't interested in another round of guilt trips or emotional manipulation. I'd made my position clear, and it wasn't going to change. She looked shocked, opening and closing her mouth without words. I didn't let her recover. I unleashed everything I'd held back for years. All the hurt, anger, and resentment that had been building since I was 16 came pouring out. It was like a dam had broken, and I couldn't have stopped it even if I wanted to. I told her she'd been the worst mother I could imagine. I asked how she could kick out a 16-year-old for having a boyfriend, throwing me to the wolves without a second thought. I asked how she slept at night knowing she let me fend for myself as a teenager while Rose got chance after chance without consequences. I reminded her how I had struggled to finish high school while working to support myself, how I had gone to bed hungry more times than I could count because I couldn't afford both food and rent. I asked if she had ever once thought about what I was going through, or if she had simply wiped me from her mind as soon as I walked out the door. Her hands trembled as she tried to make excuses about being stressed back then. I cut her off. I told her stress didn't justify abandoning one child while coddling another to the point of enabling destructive behavior. I pointed out how she'd spent years bending over backward for Rose, cleaning up her messes, and now had the audacity to expect me to do the same. I reminded her that she had created this situation by teaching Rose that someone would always be there to fix her problems. She had raised Rose to be dependent and entitled, and now she was dealing with the consequences of her parenting choices. She flinched as my voice rose. I told her I wouldn't be the family's punching bag anymore, and if she thought she could guilt me into it, she was delusional. I was done being the scapegoat. the villain, the one who was expected to sacrifice everything while getting nothing in return. I had built my life without their help, and I wasn't going to let them tear it down. Now, she finally spoke weakly, saying I was being unfair, that she'd made mistakes but was only trying to keep the family together. She claimed she loved both her daughters equally and wanted to find a solution that would work for everyone. She said she was just trying to be a good mother to both of us in the best way she knew how. I laughed and told her if she wanted a united family, she should have treated her children equally, instead of making me the villain while portraying Rose as a helpless victim. I pointed out that her idea of keeping the family together seemed to involve me giving up everything while Rose contributed nothing. That wasn't family, that was exploitation. Real families supported each other reciprocally, not just taking from one to give to another. Her face crumpled, but I felt nothing. I told her this was her mess to deal with, not mine, and if she ever showed up at my door with this nonsense again, I'd report her for harassment. I suggested she focus on helping Rose develop some independence and self-reliance instead of looking for someone else to take care of her. Rose needed to learn to stand on her own 2 feet, and Mom needed to stop enabling her destructive behavior. She tried to protest, saying she was just trying to help Rose. I cut her off and told her it was her problem that she'd only ever helped one child. I wasn't about to let her or Rose tear down what I'd built. I had worked too hard for too long to get where I was, and I wasn't going to sacrifice it all because they couldn't get their act together. She stood there stunned, mouth opening and closing without words. I didn't give her a chance to recover. I slammed the door in her face. "Figure it out like the worthless rats you are," I told her before shutting the door. The words were harsh, but I was past caring. They had pushed me to my breaking point, and I was done playing nice. I know she'll probably tell everyone I'm the villain, but I've decided to go no contact with all of them. I've blocked their numbers, unfriended them on social media, and instructed my lawyer to handle any further communication. I'm tired of the drama, the manipulation, and the entitlement. I deserve peace and stability, and if that means cutting ties with toxic family members, so be it.